Welcome to STARS Launch Pod, where we chat with innovators who are overcoming challenges, pushing boundaries, and collaborating to make space more accessible and sustainable for humanity, one launch at a time.
It's one small step for man.
Here's your host, Susan Wise.
Welcome to STARS Launch Pod, Space Technology and Research Sciences. I'm Susan Wise, and welcoming Dr. Malav Trivedi, founder of Zero Gravity. Hi, Malav. How you doing?
Good. How about you, Susan? Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm really excited to share some of my learnings and learn more about what you are doing with STARS Launchpad.
I am too. I mean, we're kind of partners, I guess.
In a way, we are.
Tell me more about Zero Gravity.
Sure. Thank you, Susan. Before I begin with Zero Gravity, I'm a pharmacist by training. I did my master's and PhD in neuroscience, and I was studying something called as epigenetics. Epigenetics is basically how day-to-day environmental factors can affect your gene expression. So basically your sleep, your diet, your nutrition, your exercise, or the toxins from a pollution and things like that, the air that you breathe, or the food that you eat. How do all of those things actually affect you as an individual on a day-to-day basis? And that's what I was studying in terms of epigenetics. And how is metabolism linked with epigenetics, and how does the metabolism of the body can affect epigenetics? So while I was studying and doing research on all of that at my lab, I came across some work on stem cells and how epigenetic changes in stem cells can actually determine which path an individual takes in terms of development. We all start with embryonic stem cells. We all were a small stem cell, right? And initially, and then it starts dividing and multiplying, and then kidney cells, liver cells, brain cells, all of those cells actually start from stem cells. And
Some people get more brain cells than others, right?
Maybe theoretically, but not practically. But yeah, in terms of what I was trying to study was how do microgravity factors can affect zero gravity. Microgravity can actually affect the stem cell development and the stem cell formation. And I came across this technology that NASA had developed back in the 60s and the 70s that was using microgravity simulations and microgravity bioreactors that has now been on 9 space missions and was also at the International Space Station that actually uses the bioreactor to culture stem cells. And so Dr. David Pollock and I founded Zero Gravity Sciences, that we actually tried to utilize the same zero gravity bioreactor, but application towards plant stem cells and plant tissue culture. And so that's what Zero Gravity Sciences started with. But now we have expanded a lot more, not just from plant sciences, but we are also doing more things like hydroponics. We are doing nanoparticles and nanoparticle delivery systems for pharmaceutical as well as nutrition-based delivery systems. So, and I'm sure in later episodes, I will talk more about it. But for this one, I really want to focus on the zero gravity for the plant stem cell and the plant bioactives. So that's how the whole Zero Gravity Sciences started a few years ago. And we have been working a lot more on the plant stem cell side of things.
How do we use those plant stem cells? What do we use them in?
So the plant bioactives have really strong applications towards dermatology. And especially the big aha moment for me came when me and David, when we first saw the parallels between NASA's research that they were doing and the challenges that we were facing in terms of these delicate plant actives here on Earth. So NASA had developed this technology, as I mentioned, to grow 3D human stem cells and 3-dimensional human stem cells in the space. In an environment, there is no forces and there's no oxidation that can occur under zero gravity. So we realized that we could actually apply the same principles to the botanical tissues on Earth to keep their biochemistry intact during cultivation, during extraction. And so when we first ran some of these comparative analysis, we saw about 2 to 3 times higher retention of antioxidants, amino acids, and vitamins compared to conventional heat or solvent-based method extractions. we knew right then and there that this was a breakthrough. That was our sort of a big aha moment when we realized that we can make extracts for these plant materials that can create a separate ingredient category for application towards skincare, cosmetics, dermatological properties. And now we have gone to develop also towards nutrition side of things. So to your
Wow.
question, that big aha moment led to such a big application towards skincare and cosmetics, something that had never
So
been achieved at this scale.
you can do something with this, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that. That's fascinating. It's amazing
Thank
how,
you.
you know, we researching science for another reason and then how it can be applicable in everyday use and make our lives so much better.
Absolutely. And that's what science is about, right? In terms of taking nature and then taking the best of nature and extracting out of that and trying to bring it back towards human applications.
Malav, did you have over your time, what was probably your biggest challenge and how did you overcome that?
Sure, a number of challenges. But one that I would really like to share is one of the biggest challenge is translating space grade technology into commercially viable platform, but without losing its scientific integrity. So on one
Mhm.
hand, we have to maintain the rigor and the complexity that comes with NASA derived processes, precision engineered bioreactors, zero gravity simulations, and highly controlled culture environments, right? I know I'm speaking a lot of scientific jargon, but basically there's a lot of complex commercial processes that we have to go
Mhm.
through to then bring that technology to real world and not only create the technology for application on Earth, but actually scale it up. Because when you're talking about NASA, they are doing experiments for one astronaut or two astronauts. But when we bring it back on Earth and we want to scale it up, there's a cost efficiency, there's regulatory compliance, there's storytelling. How do the consumers understand saying, how does the NASA technology help my skincare? So the communication,
Exactly.
storytelling, and so balancing those two worlds, in terms of the science, the NASA derived science with the commercial application. So, and constantly asking, how do we retain the science, but make it more commercially accessible and consumer accessible in a way that people understand it and people feel and relate to it so that they can actually use it on a day-to-day basis for themselves. So it required really bridging and building a network of experts in different domains and bringing them all of them together, and that's what we are doing with stars, as you mentioned. But again, we would talk about it in another podcast.
Mhm.
But what we really needed to do was bring all the engineers, all the scientists, all the biochemists to and the brand developers and marketeers, David is really good at that as well, who understand the vision, who can bridge that technical with the practical. And that's what we really did with the zero gravity sciences. And that was one of the biggest challenge. It took us some time, but now we are really sort of refined that process as to how we go about this. So it does not remain just a fascinating lab experiment. It actually has
Mhm.
become a transformed tool into industries like skincare, nutrition, and agriculture.
I love that. I love that, you have all these experiments and all these successes happening, but being able to bring these successes together and bring people together and talk about these things, you never know what discovery's right around the corner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Malav, what one piece of advice would you like to give our listeners today?
I feel I'm still a bit young to start giving advices to people, but from my experience in academia as well as in commercial world and launching zero gravity and couple of other commercial projects, I feel you always have to stay curious. I think it's what is it? Stay hungry, stay foolish, or stay curious, because that's where the connections between seemingly unrelated fields start happening. That's the groundwork and the hard data, because curiosity is it's what's going to get you exploring. It's going to be getting your wheels going. But at the end of the day, it also has to be grounded in science, because it has to be reproducible. It has to be peer reviewed. It has to be validated. Only then
Hmm.
that science is going to be translated but it's going to continue its longevity, because that's when it's going to earn the trust from the people. Because you can market and you can get the people to try it, but if it doesn't actually prove its benefit, then it's not going to stick around and it's actually going to fade out. So while you have to stay curious, you have to be also grounded in the science. And that's, again, coming from me as a scientist. And the other thing I would suggest is that don't try and be an expert in everything, but surround yourself with people who complement your skills and who are experts in different fields together. So you don't have to know everything. Again, these days with artificial intelligence and everything, like, people try and do everything by themselves. But you still have to have people who are experts. And most importantly, like, people who have spent time honing those skills, like yourself, like, in terms of being an expert in certain fields means something. Like, there's a reason that expertise exists, and AI or tools are going to be there, but the tools are only going to be as good as the people who are using it or people who have developed it. So again, there's a combination of technology, but combination of experts coming in. So surround yourself with not just the tools, but also with the people who complement those skills. And like, you elevate you as an individual as well. So for me, the key piece of advice is build those bridges between not just your ideas, but also with industry experts, and bring that whole community together. Because when the tide rises, everyone rises with it. And that's when we can truly make a difference in a community.
I love that. And about forming those relationships. I love that. And I cannot wait to talk to you more about zero gravity down the line. There's a lot to unfold. I cannot wait. But Dr. Malav Trivedi, thank you so much for joining us today on STARS Launch Pod. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Susan, for having me. And I look forward to sharing more about zero gravity sciences as we progress as well. And good luck.
All right. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review and subscribe. And until next time, keep looking up.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on social media. STARS Launch Pod, propelling us forward, one launch at a time.